So I thought I'd tell you a little bit about my research. In my lab, we're focused on the question of what makes us human. So how is it that we, among all the animals that ever existed, have expanded into nearly all of the Earth's major environments? How have we survived and thrived in these diverse environments? And this is not a recent problem. Humans expanded across the Earth over 100,000 years ago, and we ended up in the malarial swamps of New Guinea and in the Arctic tundra, Siberia, and eventually Canada. So the question is, how is our species able to dominate all of these different environments? Now, when scholars and researchers have tried to engage this question of what makes us human and what led to the secret of our success, they've often pointed to specific human capacities like language, tool using, reasoning, and our cooperative inclinations. But what we do in my lab is we try to look beneath that and ask what the shared patterns are and what brought this about. How did we get there? How did we get these different abilities? So the key insight that we've come to is that humans are a cultural species. More than any other species, we acquire a vast body of knowledge from other members of our social milieu. So skills, attitudes, emotional reactions, ways of thinking, all kinds of practices. And importantly, in the case of humans, our culture is cumulative. So each generation gets a cultural inheritance from the prior generation, and we modify, hone, refine, and pass that down to the next generation, generating a cumulative body of knowledge that allows humans to survive and thrive.
mirabjiga toliya saba shesha bata loge chungsha bata komshi da rishun digeti ane mirabjina jigla zite je ane min shenyun de chukbu shibu chagi ores tududa mandawa
kar
chukbu la min shenyun de chukbu shibu chagi ores pönchibu shibu mirabjina jigba zite shaga orwa
kar
de shenyun digeti komshi da ane samdang da shenyun da loge da digeti sama merabjina jilpa zitege ores tinza medu tududa mendrawe tone rishung tone rishung de merab zitege yudigal de tone kevan dudus.
So this
now I believe you see now basically the life of our world also now limited. Global warming. So now some scientists say, you see, global warming gradually world itself fire. So now thinking, now the world itself now facing end. The nangbe shung nalolya kyaba magic chunchi lungjistoa that the magic the yungu so.
So in Buddhist cosmological text there is an understanding of different phases of evolution and the world actually eventually coming to an end as due to forces of elements such as heat and fire. So it looks like we might be heading towards that direction.
Well,
now, the question of how long our world remain. This is very serious now matter. Now, sooner or later, you see ending of our world. So while we still alive, then it is silly, it is a meaningless fight. My nation, your nation, my religion, their religion. The simple reason you see fight. Now time come, we have to think. We all 7 billion human beings. We are same human brothers, sisters. we have to live together. And then the past human history make a distinction, fight. Even today, a lot of military forces, these are outdated. Now we should think, we all human beings, same human brothers, sisters, we have to live side by side. So, according to my own experience, little experience, come to India, I consider we are same. Much better. With this feeling, visit Europe, Africa, some Latin America, with the feeling we are same. Then mentally, no barrier. So therefore, now time come, we have to make effort to create idea, the sameness of all 7 billion human beings, actually our brothers, sisters. Now Russia and
Ukraine.
Ukraine. This, you see, short sighted, complicated, but long time, they have to live together. Oh, it's much better with feeling of brotherhood, sisterhood, work together.
Thank you so much,
So-
Your Holiness. Your Holiness, Joe, will you continue?
Yeah, and I just want to dovetail off what you were saying. So one of the things, I mean, what we're trying to do in my lab is get to human nature. And one of the reasons I think we've had a problem getting to human nature in the past is that we haven't sufficiently considered the way that culture, the products of culture, have shaped our human genetic evolution, changing human nature in ways that we don't see in other species and that are unexpected. So it's this inheritance of this non-genetic information producing things like fire and cooking and tools and different ways of thinking and medical practices has shaped our physiology, our anatomy, and our minds. So, and most people don't realize this, how much of our physiology has been shaped by genetic evolution. Let me give you an example. So,
Hold on one second.
No, so
Okay.
go ahead.
가셔보세요.
Tana di rikshung ki komshi dan di tone mi
Kare.
rikshung yorwa culture. Culture dan di ki komshi ki tone mi supule evolution ki tone gyodro yores. Pena mi thoma metaya ngoshin bata. Dine khala zuyo je saya dan. Dine di rikshung ki komshi ki tone supu genetically gyawate yores. Ita kuna mutun shuyerisha. Go ahead.
I think the example will help. So we humans can't innately make fire or cook. We learn from other people how to do that, and it's really hard to figure out on your own. But long ago, over 1 million years ago, people began learning from others how to make fire and cook. And this became prevalent enough that evolution shaped our colons, it shortened our colons, made our stomachs smaller, shrunk our teeth, and made our jaws weaker. So that's one aspect of our physiology that has been shaped by cultural evolution. Other parts have been shaped as well, like our brains. So by studying other animals and the stones and bones of ancient human ancestors, we can see that culture probably drove the expansion of our brains. So that a lot of what our big brains are for are acquiring, storing, and processing the information that we learn from others. You mentioned before how mothers can have this big influence on kids. And that's in part because this process of gene culture coevolution extended our childhood so that during childhood, we can wire in social norms and the kinds of things we're exposed to, aspects of language.
그래서
그래서 간다데 미 komshi da rikshun da nyamnyon da dege tone merabjil chik zitege yores Dinza pena thana kudu kana manaji ki pugu chungchung chalon chebe kala ame amada pugu dewa te tole shugyen shibish tege orba. Te tege yudu kala dati anzu chizo ge simjen yudu kala di tone pena mi pugu yena kanda amalia che toya ge tuzu de ringata. Tudu shindala tone. Da di ringali ya ane ame zane nezu mangpoji nyamyong tone jangi yores. Da tuzu tite kuran neka tewa ndirisha. Mi subui gyurwa di rikshungu nyamnyon dan komshi dan ane gogo la tuyunje ane subui gyurwa dhugu yores, evolution di.
I believe important is the concept of oneness of 7 billion human beings. That we have to live on this planet. Now, a time coming, no longer emphasis my nation, their nation, and my religion, their religion. That's old thinking. Now, new situation we are facing. One example, as I mentioned earlier, global warming. If global warming make distinction, this nation escape, that nation will suffer. No, we all use the same way. So therefore, now our old thinking, this nation, that nation, my religion, that religion, that's old thinking. Now things become quite serious. And with old thinking, too much violence, too much war, no use. Now we have to think really happy world on the basis of we all same human being. We have to live together. Actually, we 7 billion human beings are our brothers, sisters. We have to live together. That thinking, you see, now no relevant my nation, their nation, and make preparation for fight each other. Now that time already gone. Now at least Taiwanese and mainlander some problem. But these are actually small matter. Same people, same culture, same language, should think more broader way, not a small thing.
So one of the things that my intellectual endeavor is to figure out a more nuanced and detailed understanding of human nature so we can begin to build the notion of oneness that you're suggesting. So this process of culture-gene coevolution that I've been telling you about, it's shaped our psychology in ways that could be useful to us in building that oneness. So for example, there's a domain of psychology that I call norm psychology. And this is a case where cultural evolution went first. And first it created a world of social rules, which we call norms, where when you break them, people will get angry with you or annoyed with you, and kind of these rules that govern the social world. And genetic evolution went second and gave us a psychology and a mind that expects there to be social rules in the world and allows us to internalize those norms as motivations in themselves. So this can lead to a form of true altruism when we internalize a highly cooperative norm. They also lead to things like anger when someone violates a norm. And Molly's going to talk about moral outrage in a few minutes. Also the tendency to punish norms. So that's one piece of human nature that we may be able to put to work. A second aspect of human nature is called our interdependent psychology. Now, this is a case where cultural evolution went first, and it spread cooperative norms like food sharing. So anthropologists have studied diverse societies and found groups will often share food widely. And once that exists, selection builds a psychology that tries to figure out who is in this interdependent network, because their existence, health, and survival directly affects your existence, health, and survival. So you have a kind of very natural altruism towards those you perceive in your interdependent social network. In societies, we can study other societies to figure out how they have queued this up. So there are certain face-to-face rituals. Some of these rituals involve frightening people together. There are also common eating practices which help to cultivate this interdependent psychology. So we may be able to harness them. The third aspect of human nature we call ethnic psychology. Here again, the world was first built by cultural evolution. So culture creates groups that have different norms. So just like you've been talking about, different countries. But because of how cultures passed on, those groups are often marked by different languages, dialects, dress, things like that. So to better navigate that world, genetic evolution inclined us towards this ethnic psychology where we preferentially interact with those who share our markers and we learn from them, which can reinforce this process. This also leads to ethnic stereotyping, where if we learn about behavior of one person and they have a certain language or ethnic or dress or something, we see someone else, we assume they have the same norm, the same behavior, and that leads to ethnic stereotyping. But potentially, this could be harnessed if we could figure out how to build a kind of global identity and using ethnic psychology to cue this up. It could be a powerful tool in our efforts to create the kind of changes you were talking about. Now, as you were noting, there's all this.
가수 again.
그래서 다른데 미 지도 나로 다 미티 지도 심제로와 미디 미싱의 지도 심제인 되고 지도 나로 차론체 되고 지도 그 공시다 되게 돈에 근데 미게 사이콜로지리아 셈네 셰벌 레벨의 교와 테오리 디나로로야 아니 지그 편준도주기 내주시야다 지기질 땡고에 내주시는 되고야 닝녀고 차야다 야네야 지 미리 지기 깨 지보다 되게 돈에야 수수 지기질이야 닝녀고 용한데 되게고 미게 간다 사이콜로지 차셔야 되기 때문에 요래서 두두디 신바에나타나 군두가 나에게 로미 지규고 따가져와 로미 지규고 따와데 시간레질로 샤고고도 디캬베체야라 텐데 펜도 연구를 삼고도사
가래.
디캬베체야라 투변 수요그레 펜도 연구를 삼고도사 로미 지규고 따와 군두가 난 거로와 미상마 지규인베 따와데 두시데 디캬베체야라 단다 디게데 신바나
Okay, Joe.
Sure. Let's see. So I wanted to make a point about human history. And you had mentioned that there's all this conflict among societies. And this is especially the case since the origins of agriculture. Societies have had conflict over land and resources. And what's happened is societies that have institutions or cultural belief systems, religions, and rituals that allow them to scale up and cooperate in larger groups have tended to proliferate and take over and at the expense of other groups. So this has been happening for 10,000 years. But to a scientist, this is an instruction manual. We can look back at the diverse societies that this process has produced and see how they have used these cultural technologies, institutions, beliefs, rituals, all this kind of thing that allows humans to cooperate in larger groups. And these can then be reused to create this kind of global identity or possibly to build stronger, interdependent local groups. And let me just mention one other important thing, because you've mentioned climate change.
가수도.
디 로규나라 때베나 지도 간다 강인의 편준 지기질 뜨줍다 냠룹 제통이 코퍼레이션 제통이 지도의 폐계 신부 총회였어. 그래서 코퍼레이션의 내가 전부 차기도 디 나온. Yeah.
So let me just close by saying that these are just a few examples of the new insights we've gotten into human nature that could possibly be redeployed to create the kind of oneness and the strong local communities that I think we need to address some of the major challenges facing us.
Joe, thank you so much. And you're only